This is Silene Eaddy, known as Erica. She's a name on a file of a cold case in Richland County. But investigators are again making a plea for information, and we do want to warn you that this is a tragic story with heart-wrenching details in a 20-year-old cold case.
On April 17, 2004, around 5:15 in the morning, the air near Highway 378 in Richland County, South Carolina, was thick with humidity and damp earth. A heavy fog hung low over the tall pines. Darkness still swallowed Pincushion Road and Montgomery Lane. It was a remote stretch of country road, a place where people rarely stopped unless they lived there. Then, a driver passing by noticed something flickering in the trees. It was not a large fire, just a small, localized flame licking at the dry grass on the side of the road. To anyone else, it looked like a small patch of burning brush. Someone must have tossed a lit cigarette from a car window. Or maybe a pile of yard debris caught a stray spark. The driver pulled over, dialed 911, and reported a minor brush fire. At 5:20 a.m., the sirens of the Columbia Fire Department broke the quiet morning. A single fire truck pulled onto the scene. The headlights cut through the fog, illuminating a small plume of gray smoke rising from the tall grass. Firefighters stepped out into the damp morning air, pulling a hose line toward the flame. According to official incident reports, as the water doused the embers and the thick smoke began to clear, a firefighter stepped forward to inspect the ground. That was when the morning changed forever. Lying in the charred grass was not a log. It was not a pile of trash. It was a human body. The victim was lying face down in the dirt, completely engulfed in the remnants of a fire fed by an artificial chemical accelerant. The heat had been so intense that the grass around the body had melted into a black, glassy crust. The firefighters immediately backed away and called for law enforcement. Within 20 minutes, the quiet dirt road was flooded with red and blue flashing lights. The Richland County Sheriff's Department took over the scene. Detectives taped off the entire area, stringing yellow caution tape between the pine trees. Investigators stepped carefully into the field with flashlights. According to forensic scene notes, the body was burned beyond recognition. The victim's clothing had been reduced to ash. There was no identification card, no cell phone. Whoever put this body here wanted it to vanish. They wanted the fire to erase a human life, leaving nothing behind for the police to find. As the sun began to rise over Richland County, casting a pale orange light through the trees, investigators examined the damp earth surrounding the burn site. That was when they noticed their very first clue. Fresh tire tracks were pressed deep into the mud right at the edge of the tree line. The killer had driven up to this quiet spot in the dead of night. They had pulled off the road, dragged a heavy load out of the vehicle, poured gasoline or lighter fluid over it, lit a match, and driven away into the dark. The coroner arrived on scene to remove the body. The preliminary examination offered a few disturbing facts. The victim was a female. Based on her size and bone structure, she was young, possibly a teenager. She had not died from the fire. According to autopsy findings released later, the victim had suffered brutal, blunt force trauma to her head and upper body before the fire ever started. Someone had beaten her mercilessly. And then came the detail that made even seasoned homicide detectives feel sick to their stomach. Trace amounts of soot were found deep inside her airway. As this detail suggested something horrific. Her lungs were still breathing in the smoke when the flames were ignited. She was still alive when her body was set on fire. Who was this young girl? Why was she left to die alone on a dark dirt road in Richland County? And who could carry out an act of such pure, cold-blooded violence? Today, we are visiting the tragic case of Selene Eddie. Before we continue uncovering the mysterious trail of evidence in this case, take a second to hit the subscribe button below and turn on your notifications. Your support allows us to keep bringing these vital stories into the light, giving a voice to those who can no longer speak for themselves. Subscribe now, and let's make sure justice is never left in the dark. Silene Eaddy was born on August 14th, 1988. According to public state records, almost nothing is known about the first year of her life or who her biological parents were. She was entered into the South Carolina foster care system as an infant. She was a child without a recorded history, dependent on the state for her survival. When Silene was roughly 1 year old, she was placed into the home of Brenda McCoy and her husband in Columbia, South Carolina. Brenda McCoy was a woman dedicated to helping children. According to news reports from local Columbia outlets, Brenda worked in social services. She knew how difficult the foster system could be on young kids. She saw children bouncing from house to house, never knowing where they belonged. She wanted to give a child a real, permanent home. After fostering Silene for 2 years, Brenda and her husband officially adopted her when she was 3 years old. For a time, life inside the McCoy house was stable and warm. The family lived in a quiet neighborhood in Columbia. Brenda and her husband adopted 2 other children, a boy named Eugene and a girl named Destiny. Silene grew up surrounded by siblings. According to interviews given by Brenda McCoy years later, Silene was an independent little girl right from the start. She was full of energy. Even as a toddler, she wanted to help around the kitchen. She loved cooking scrambled eggs, and she loved doing things for the people around her. Brenda often noted that Silene was especially close to her adopted father. He was her safe harbor. Whenever she was scared or upset, he was the one she ran to. Then, when Silene was just 5 years old, tragedy struck the family. Without warning, Brenda's husband suffered a massive heart attack and died. The sudden loss tore through the McCoy household. But for 5-year-old Silene, the loss was catastrophic. She had already lost her biological parents before she was old enough to remember them. Now, the father who had given her a stable home was gone too. According to Brenda, Silene was never quite the same after her father's death. As the years went on, a deep sadness seemed to take root inside the young girl. As she transitioned from a child into a teenager, that inner grief began to transform into something else. It turned into rebellion, confusion, and anger. Silene entered Dreher High School in Columbia. On the surface, she looked like she was finding her footing. She joined the school's dance team. She joined the junior ROTC program. She attended church regularly with her family and volunteered for church activities. She loved writing poetry and listening to music. To a stranger passing by, Silene looked like a typical high school girl. She was always well-dressed. Her hair was always neatly styled. She took pride in her appearance. According to a neighbor interviewed by a local newspaper, Silene possessed a wonderful spirit. But everyone could tell she was searching for something she couldn't seem to find. Part of what she was searching for was her origin. As she got older, Silene began asking Brenda endless questions about her biological parents. Who were they? Where were they now? Why had they given her up? Brenda tried to search for answers, but public adoption records from that era were sealed tight. Brenda had no answers to give her daughter. The lack of answers left Silene feeling completely untethered. By the time she turned 15, Silene's behavior at home became increasingly difficult for Brenda to manage. The small rules at home were ignored. Groundings were met with defiance. Silene started sneaking out of the house, sliding through her bedroom window, or slipping out the back door after dark. Then, halfway through her freshman year at Dreher High School, Silene got into a verbal argument with another student. According to school records, she used coarse language toward the student and was officially expelled. She was transferred to Austin Wilkes Alternative School. While she managed to stay out of trouble during school hours, her life outside of school was spiraling out of control. According to neighbors living near Fountain Lake Road, Silene was no longer just running away to hang out with friends her own age. She had started hitchhiking. Neighbors reported seeing the 15-year-old girl standing near busy intersections, accepting rides from men in their 20s whom she barely knew. Friends tried to warn her. They told her it was dangerous. They told her she didn't know who these men were. According to one friend's mother, Selene would just shrug off the warnings. She was trying to act grown up, and she had a sharp mouth when anyone tried to tell her what to do. On the evening of April 15th, 2004, just 36 hours before firefighters found the blaze on Pincushion Road, Selene was at home with her mother. Around 7:30 p.m., Selene put on her jacket and headed toward the front door. A neighbor sitting on a nearby porch saw the 15-year-old step out into the fading evening light. Knowing that Selene frequently ran off without permission, the neighbor dialed Brenda's phone number to let her know her daughter was walking away from the house. Brenda hung up the phone and walked out onto the lawn. She called out to Selene, asking where she was going. Selene stopped, looked back at her mother, but refused to answer. According to Brenda's statements to police, she tried to get her daughter to come back inside, but Selene turned around and continued walking down Fountain Lake Road, disappearing into the twilight. Brenda stood on the driveway and watched her walk away. She felt a familiar wave of frustration. Selene had done this dozens of times before. She would wander off, stay out for a few hours, and then show up back at the door late at night or early the next morning. Brenda went back inside and waited. The clock ticked past 10 p.m., then midnight, then 3 a.m. Selene did not come home. The sun came up over Columbia, South Carolina, on the morning of April 16th, 2004. Inside the house on Fountain Lake Road, Brenda McCoy looked at Selene's empty bedroom. The bed was still made. The room was quiet. According to police reports, Brenda felt a heavy mix of frustration and fear. Selene had stayed out late before, but usually by the time morning came, the front door would open. Selene would walk in, tired and quiet, looking for breakfast. This morning, there was no sound at the front door. Brenda checked the neighborhood streets. She called local friends. Nobody had seen the 15-year-old girl since she walked away the evening before. Brenda considered calling the police right away, but she hesitated. According to statements Brenda gave later, Selene had been reported missing a month earlier during another runaway episode. Selene had eventually returned home on her own, but the missing persons report remained on file with local law enforcement. Brenda knew how local officers viewed teens who ran away. She worried they would simply tell her that Selene was playing games again and would come back when she got hungry. So Brenda waited. She prayed her daughter was just cooling off at a friend's house. She had no idea that while she sat by the phone waiting, Selene was already in terrible danger. Meanwhile, across town, time was running out. From 7:30 p.m. on April 15th until 5:15 a.m. on April 17th, Selene vanished into thin air. 36 hours passed between the moment her mother watched her walk down the street and the moment firefighters doused the flames on Pincushion Road. What happened during those 36 hidden hours? When detectives from the Richland County Sheriff's Department officially identified the body using dental records, they knew they were working against the clock. According to Homicide Division notes, detectives began mapping out the location where Selene was found. Pincushion Road was roughly 15 miles away from Selene's home on Fountain Lake Road. Selene did not own a car. She did not have money for a taxi. Walking 15 miles through unfamiliar country roads at night was highly unlikely. This meant only one thing. Selene had gotten into a vehicle. Did she hitchhike on the night of April 15th, as she had done in the past? Did she flag down a stranger on a main street? Or did she meet someone she already knew? Detectives began knocking on doors all along Fountain Lake Road. They interviewed neighbors, classmates from Austin Wilkes Alternative School, and former friends from Dreher High School. According to witness statements collected during the first week of the investigation, several neighborhood teens said they saw Selene walking toward a busier main street shortly after leaving her house. But after that point, the trail went completely cold. No one saw her get into a car. No store security cameras captured her walking past. No one reported seeing her at local fast food places or gas stations. She had simply vanished off the streets of Columbia. While detectives worked the neighborhood, Forensic technicians were busy analyzing the physical evidence recovered from the crime scene on Pincushion Road. The killer had tried to use fire to destroy every shred of evidence, but fire rarely erases everything. Forensic teams carefully sifted through the ashes around the body. They recovered tiny fragments of unburned fabric, melted jewelry bits, and the single charm that Brenda McCoy later recognized from Selene's favorite necklace. According to autopsy notes, the medical examiner made a crucial discovery during the internal examination. The physical trauma to Selene's body was extensive. She had suffered severe fractures to her facial bones and skull. The blows had been delivered with incredible force using a blunt object, possibly a tire iron, a heavy pipe, or a club. The attacker had targeted her head and upper torso with extreme fury. Then came the detail that horrified the investigative team. When the medical examiner checked her breathing passages, fine particles of carbon and soot were lined inside her trachea and lungs. In forensic pathology, soot in the lungs is a clear indicator that the victim was breathing while surrounded by smoke and fire. The medical examiner concluded that while the blunt force trauma was severe enough to render Selene unconscious, her heart was still beating when the killer poured the accelerant over her body and struck the match. The killer had not just tried to hide a body. They had committed an act of unbelievable cruelty. Detectives knew that a crime this violent usually pointed to a personal connection. When a killer uses overkill, beating a victim repeatedly about the face and setting them on fire, it often signals intense anger or a desire to destroy the victim's identity. Investigators turned their focus towards Selene's inner circle. According to police records, detectives began compiling a list of men Selene had been seen with in the weeks leading up to her death. Neighbors had told police that Selene was frequently seen talking to older men in their 20s. Some neighbors claimed she had been accepting rides from men who hung around local corner stores. Detectives located several of these men and brought them in for questioning. One by one, the men were brought into interrogation rooms at the sheriff's department. Detectives pressed them on their whereabouts on the night of April 15th and the early morning of April 17th. They checked alibis. They inspected personal vehicles for signs of blood or chemical accelerants. They checked tire treads to see if any matched the tracks left in the mud on Pincushion Road. According to investigative updates released to local media, every man interviewed provided a verifiable alibi or had tire treads that did not match the crime scene. None of the physical evidence tied them to Pincushion Road. The investigation was running into a brick wall. The mystery of the missing 36 hours was growing darker. Selene had walked out of her home, stepped into a shadow, and ended up on a dark dirt road miles away. Who was driving the car that picked her up? And why has no one ever come forward with the truth? Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into agonizing months. By the summer of 2004, the initial frenzy of police activity around Pincushion Road had begun to settle. The yellow crime scene tape was gone. Rain had washed away the black, glassy crust on the dirt path. The pine trees continued to grow in the damp South Carolina air. Inside the Richland County Sheriff's Department, the case file for 15-year-old Selene was growing thick with papers. Detectives had interviewed dozens of people. They checked local gas stations across Columbia to see if anyone remembered a customer buying gas in a small portable container late at night. They reviewed phone records. They spoke to teachers, neighbors, foster care caseworkers, and teenagers from 2 different high schools. According to police case summaries, every single lead led to a dead end. The tire tracks left in the damp mud near the tree line offered a temporary glimmer of hope. Investigators brought in tire tread specialists to analyze the deep grooves left at the scene. They determined the shape and width of the tires, narrowing down the potential vehicle types. However, without a specific suspect car to compare the tracks to, the tire pattern was like a key without a lock. It sat in an evidence folder, waiting for a matching set of wheels that never appeared. The chemical accelerant used in the fire provided another dead end. Tests conducted by the forensic lab confirmed that a common commercial accelerant was used to ignite the blaze. But because the liquid was so widely available at gas stations and hardware stores across the state, it was impossible to trace where it was purchased. The killer had left behind a scene designed to erase evidence, and to a frightening degree, that plan was working. Back on Fountain Lake Road, Brenda McCoy lived every mother's worst nightmare. The house was empty without Selene's loud energy. The bedroom where the teenager spent hours listening to music and writing poetry remained frozen in time. According to newspaper interviews Brenda gave in the years following the murder, she found herself constantly looking out the window at the front yard. She kept remembering the exact moment on April 15th when she stood on the lawn, watching her young daughter walk into the dusk. She remembered calling out to her. She remembered Selene turning her head for just a second before disappearing down the street. Brenda was haunted by questions that had no answers. Was Selene lured away by a friend? Did she get into a car with someone she thought she could trust? Or was she snatched off the street by a predator lurking in the dark? Brenda set up a small memorial in her home. She kept Selene's pictures on display, ensuring that anyone who visited the house knew about the young girl whose life was stolen away so violently. Brenda vowed never to let the public forget Selene's name. As the years rolled by, the investigation into Selene's murder stalled completely. Homicide detectives who originally worked the case were promoted, transferred, or retired. The heavy case file was transferred from one detective's desk to another. In 2008, 4 years after the murder, the South Carolina Department of Corrections tried a creative tactic to crack unsolved crimes across the state. According to public department releases, law enforcement agencies produced a specialized deck of playing cards. These decks were distributed to inmates inside state prisons and local detention centers. Each playing card featured a photograph of a missing person or an unsolved homicide victim, along with a brief summary of the crime and a toll-free tip line number. The idea was simple. Inmates often talk. People behind bars hear rumors or trade secrets about crimes committed on the outside. By putting victims' faces right into the hands of prisoners during their daily card games, investigators hoped someone's conscience or desire for a reduced sentence would lead to a breakthrough. Selene Eddie's face was printed on one of those cards. Her bright eyes and high school smile looked out from the cardboard surface, offering a quiet plea for justice to anyone holding the card in a prison cell. According to cold case investigators, the playing card campaign generated dozens of tips for various cold cases across South Carolina. Tip lines rang with calls from inmates claiming to have heard names and stories in the cafeteria or cell blocks. Detectives tracked down every lead connected to Selene's card. They traveled to prisons, interviewed informants, and cross-referenced claims with physical evidence from the 2004 crime scene. Yet, despite the renewed push, every prison lead dissolved into thin air. Many tips were based on prison gossip, incorrect details, or people seeking favors without real information. The deck of cards did not produce the break Selene's family so desperately needed. By the decade mark of the crime, Selene's case officially joined the ranks of South Carolina's long-standing cold cases. However, cold case detectives from Richland County insist that a case is never truly closed until it is solved. According to statement records from the Richland County Sheriff's Department, investigators still review Selene's file periodically. They look at the evidence using modern eyes and new technologies that were not available back in 2004. In recent years, advancements in forensic science, such as advanced DNA extraction and touch DNA analysis, have revolutionized cold case investigations. Detectives have re-examined the physical items collected from Pincushion Road, hoping that microscopic samples of skin cells or touch DNA left on the victim's remaining possessions might unlock a genetic profile. Investigators remain convinced of one crucial fact. Someone out there knows what happened during those missing 36 hours. a killer does not commit a crime of such intense violence and remain silent forever. A vehicle was driven to Pincushion Road. An accelerant was bought. A secret was carried away from that burning grass. Someone saw Selene get into that car. Someone heard a suspect talk. Someone holds the final piece of the puzzle. Selene was only 15 years old when her life was stolen. She was a girl who had already faced heavy grief early in her childhood. She was a teenager trying to find her place in the world, searching for her roots and dreaming of a future that she never got to live. She was a daughter, a sister, and a student whose story was violently cut short on a dark dirt road. Her life was far more than the tragic way it ended on Pincushion Road. The brutal act committed on April 17, 2004, was meant to erase Selene from existence. The fire was meant to destroy her identity and cover up a coward's crime. But her story remains alive because people refuse to let her memory fade into the dark. Justice for Silene Eddie has been delayed for over 2 decades. But delay does not mean defeat. As long as her story is told, as long as people say her name, the pressure remains on the person who drove into the woods that morning. The truth is still out there, waiting for the right moment to come into the light. If you or anyone you know has any information regarding the murder of Silene Eaddy on April 17, 2004, please contact the Richland County Sheriff's Department or South Carolina Crime Stoppers. Even the smallest detail could be the key that finally brings peace to a grieving family and justice to a 15-year-old girl. May Silene Eaddy rest in peace.